Why is that up for you now? Be impeccable with your word. And it may not be something personally with you, but in the world, you know, what is it to be impeccable with one's word? Who wants to start?
I'll
Gwen?
start. Yeah,
Okay.
why not? What the heck? Well, when I think of it, because I'll be honest, I haven't read the book yet. But when I
Okay.
think of that, just knowing that those are the agreements to be impeccable with my word, I take it to mean truth. It's just being honest, being courageous enough to be honest with whatever the situation is and what the conversation may be, and stand behind what I feel, what I believe, and what I know to be true for me.
All right. Good, good, good. Sandria, how about you?
I can add on to what Gwen is saying. Uh, that for me, and the other part that struck me in reading the book, being impeccable with my word, means not negating who I am. That I'm impeccable about how I talk about Sandria and how I think about Sandria. So that is important to me, and something that I have to be a good steward of my thoughts about who I am, as well as as my word, and giving my word for what I will and will not do in the world, is also my word of how I speak about myself and how I think about who Sandria is.
Nice. Janice.
Yeah, just to follow up, one of the things that I highlighted on in the book is that you can measure the impeccability of your word by your level of self-love, which is exactly what you're talking about, is that how much how much I take on from somebody else's gossip, or how much I take on around somebody speaking ill about somebody else, is really directly proportional. How it affects me is directly proportional to how I'm feeling about myself and the amount of love that I have about myself. And it just brought me back to a real quick story. Is I used to work with a guy who was really abusive, verbally abusive, and his last name was Buck. So we all laughed about it, and we all said, "Did you get Buck today?" And every morning I would wake up, and he was my boss. So I'd wake up really like, I wonder what kind of email I'm going to get. I know it's going to put me down. I was just really anxious. But on the days where I was feeling really good about myself, none of those emails came in. That he was supervising. We'd get together on the phone and we would gossip about him, how bad he was, that he was this, he was that, he was this, he was that. And there was just finally a point in time where I said, you know what, guys, the more we talk about him this way, the more he's going to be this way. So we're holding him, and I think about that sometimes, like Trump or leader, that is where we gossip about the leader, and the more we say he's insane, or the more that we get agreement around how bad this person was by gossiping, the more we was solidifying it. And I said, I can't participate anymore in this. I said, what we can do is just hold him in that he's doing the best he can, and how we react is what's going to be important. But I was gossiping about him for so long until I realized that the more I gossiped, the more he got to be the way that we were gossiping about him. So it is putting our word out like that actually creates the reality.
Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of did our second part, because my second question is the time you were impeccable with your word, and what you finally did is you had enough.
Yeah.
And you saw the thing and put a stop to it. What I would like invite us to really kind of ponder for a minute, suppose Janice had not done that. Suppose she had just stuck with the gossip what would have happened in her life?
Hmm.
Think about middle school if you have to, for an example.
Okay.
Middle school, you said?
What's that?
You said middle school? Think about middle
Middle
school.
school,
I don't.
playground.
See, with all the clicks and everything.
What happens when you gossip about somebody else?
And they say, you talking about me and you want to fight?
But is it not, weren't someone whispering to us that if you're going to be gossiping about them, you need to look behind you to see who's gossiping about you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By engaging in the gossip, you are telling the universe, this is okay behavior in my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lack of integrity.
I love me some gossip. So
Yeah.
you cannot be surprised when the universe serves up, okay, well, we'll give her some too. You know, we'll flip that around. And then we sit there as humans being surprised, being outraged that somebody would have the audacity to gossip about us. But we have to do that internal work to understand, how did this come to be? How did our life get to be the way that it is? In the sense of what I'm doing, what I'm saying is creating permission for that to be in my life. I'm praying it up.
Okay.
I'm praying it up. So therefore, it's going to come from every direction, because everything is energy and everything is really kind of neutral how it comes into us. So of course, if we're, what we're sending out there, it's going to circle right around and come right back to us. And so it's really like, okay. So again, the question is, I want to give even more examples of, give me a time when you were not impeccable with your word and what happened.
Well, I remember that I had a financial advisor, and he was very good. And this guy came along that was recommended to me, and he led me into a smear campaign against my financial advisor.
Mm.
And letter writing, smear campaign, because he wanted to get some money from me. And his motives were not necessarily the best. And so we smeared this guy, and I contributed to it to get the money that I wanted to have. What happened was, the guy who helped me to smear this guy took money from me. I lost my annuity that I built years and years to have. It was gone. And then also what happened was, I was teaching class down in Seaside. And I had built a rapport with this class, and class liked me. And a new person came into the class, and she led a smear campaign on me and turned the whole class against me. Now, we had had a rapport, we'd established things like that, and we had to talk about it. And then what I realized was, as I was saying that, I realized I had done the same thing that had come back to me that they were doing now to me. And that was 30 years ago. And I got this last weekend to apologize to him in person. And he cried. He cried. He said, really? And he had a tear in his eye. I said, you know what? I've learned, and I'm a different person now, that I would never, ever do that again. We had history. You were good. You were ethical. And I just pray that nothing severe happened to you. I don't want anything from you. I don't want to establish any kind of account and things. I just want to clear the record with you. And he had a tear in his eye when he left. So what I do to others, I see it come around and it comes back and it is done to me. And when I look, it just circles back around and it's just almost immediate sometimes.
Mhm. So are you open to, I want to give you an invitation. Are you open to someone else coming to you in the immediate near future, asking for forgiveness or atonement
Yes.
for what they've done?
Yes.
Now, the reason why I plant that is because, again, we're that human being that has the one spirit on this shoulder and the other spirit on that shoulder. You know, that person may very well come back to you and say, I'm so sorry I did this. And you're going, yeah, I'm going to remember what my friend told me. I seldom forgive and I never forget. But by God, I'll always get even.
You're not going to hear that ever from me.
I know. But again, sometimes we will have to go through that chatter in our mind
Right.
and go, oh, look at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at me. I just fell on the sword over here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took the risk to clean up when I was not impeccable with my word, other stuff is going to come up because, again, we're putting it out there in the universe. Okay, universe, we've now operating on cleanup on aisle 3.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I'm doing all my, so somebody's going to be right behind, knocking on our door, ready to clean up with us. And we, got it. Yeah, got understood.
And I get you that it'll be my time to push it forward in a positive way so that it keeps circulating in an upward spiral. Yeah.
And when that happens, I'm going to encourage you to quote Brannis and go, oh, look at God being God.
Yeah. Yes, I'm open to that.
Look at God being God in this.
Yeah.
You know. Avery, any thoughts, any stories?
Yeah, many. I mean, it's a while back, years ago. I had a group of friends, and we had this one friend who he never worked, he didn't do anything, so he borrowed money from us all the time. And it was unbeknownst to each other that he'd been borrowing money from us. And we got together when we were having coffee, and somebody mentioned that his name is Sebastian. That Sebastian had borrowed money, and then it was a round of conversations about him borrowing money, and it got to, they were bad mouthing him, and I joined in the conversation because he had borrowed lots of money from me, probably more than anybody else. And you know, you're young, in your 20s, early 30s, and this is how things are. But you gotta, I don't know, sometimes I catch myself, but I don't always catch myself. It just got really bad at, oh, he needs to get a job, he needs to do this. He was a dancer and he never really worked. He needs to get a regular job. And that's what everybody just kept saying. What I learned in that is one of the people that sat at that table was doing the same thing to me about me behind my back. And usually, you know, unfortunately, that's the kind of things you do when you're a kid. But what you don't realize is that it's gonna come back to you at some point. It always comes back to you, and it's almost like karmic energy. It's that energy that what you put out into the universe is going to come back to you somehow. It may not be the same way, but it will come. It will reach you. It'll turn around and reach you, and that's what I think. Part of it is that for me. So, you know, sort of like Janis has said earlier, you know, you have to catch yourself. You have to stop yourself, because if you continue that same conversation, it's only going to continue that behavior. That behavior is just going to continue on and on and on, and you will keep having that same conversation over and over again. It's the meaning of insanity.
It is. And I think, and thank you for that. One of the things that I think is also true is that if we can imagine ourselves right before we came to this life, you know, if we were the innocent little souls sitting on the rock going, okay, now when I go back this time, okay, what are you going to do? Okay, Janice, you're going to do artwork. You're going to do great artwork, and oh, and Gwen, you're going to be a real good friend to someone. You know, we're like choosing those things that we want to add up on our bucket list, if you will, for what we want to do in this lifetime. And sometimes we are working out lessons from past lives or our historic DNA that we're also called to clean up. And I think, and at least I've experienced this in my life, so I'll only say it's for me, and I'll kind of give you my story of when we're in it, when we're stuck in that eddy of wanting acceptance, needing approval, or we're stuck in the eddy of survival, avoiding the abuse, trying to get out, we choose consciously not to be impeccable with our word, all for the best reasons. But there's still a consequence that goes with that, that still at some point in life is going to require the cleanup on aisle 3. So in my life, I made the decision at 17, I needed to get the hell out of Dodge and get out of Winchester. So I graduated from high school on May 26th, and I was enrolled at Indiana State University for summer school on June 4th, with the sound intention that I was never going to go back. But I was out, I was emancipated, I was going. And so for 3 years, I busted my butt in school so that I could even complete, if I wanted to, 4 years of my bachelor's degree in 3.5 years of time. You know, I really went for it. But in that senior year, something else happened. Suddenly, on one level, I was exhausted, but I was also engaged to get married to a girl by the name of Carol. Well, of course, my mom and my stepdad could not stand her, did not want her in my life, did not think that this was the appropriate girl. And so in my rebellious state, I was even going to make that true, even more true. Don't tell me not what to do. Now, y'all know the rest of the story. You know, there was a whole bigger thing working out there that is another story for another time. But right now, I decided that we were going to go down to Florida to meet Carol's parents before we were about to get married on August 24th. So I decided, while we were visiting her parents over that month of August on this break, that I was going to take a semester off from college. Then we were going to get married on August 24th. I was going to have that semester off and we'd be good to go. Well, lo and behold, other factors came into play, and I ended up breaking the engagement, not getting married for all the obvious reasons, but still didn't tell anyone about that yet. Wasn't about being impeccable with that. The good news is how the universe served me. Carol did something that was so egregious and so stupid that I was able to break up with her and go, whoo, lucky me. So she was working her own game, but I had to go to work. But I had a mother asking me about graduation. Now you only have one semester. You only need 11 units. I got to this place where I concocted this story that I had graduated. But the commencement class was just too large. There was no reason for her to come because it would merely be 3,000 people standing up and 3,000 people sitting down. There'd be no walking across the stage or any of that happening. And she went, So I moved to California. I start my professional career in human resources. And I got so convincingly good that when some interviewer would ask me about my college experience, I would say my 4 years of study at Indiana State was in speech communications and theater. Oh, very good. No one asked for the diploma because I had so convincingly said my 4 years of study. But for 19 years, I was always looking over my shoulder to be exposed, to have some other fool around the corporate boardroom go, well, I've been doing a little background check, Jack, and we found you never really graduated. You know, that I would be exposed for the fraud that I was. And so in my early days of personal transformation, I thought there's only one thing I can do, and that is to go back to college and get this finished. And so that's exactly what I did. I enrolled at JFK University, which was in Orinda at that time, and I completed my bachelor's degree in liberal studies. So every Sunday when I'm calling to check in with Mom, as I did as soon as Andy Rooney was done on 60 Minutes, I called her one Sunday night and I said, what are you doing the first week in June? I'd love for you to come out to California. And she goes, oh, so you're finally going to graduate? So what I learned, though, in that is there was a consequence, and what it did, especially between my relationship with her, it always from that point on put us in a trust and verify relationship.
Okay.
Where prior to that, it would have only been a trust relationship. You know, yes, I was forgiven. Yes, you know, someday I'll share the photo of my graduation ceremony that was at the Piedmont Theater in Oakland. And there's a picture of my mom, and she's clutching that diploma like her life depended on it. And for her and her experience, it did. But it taught me such a valuable lesson. So what happens, fast forward, when I am in a 16-year relationship with someone, and after 16 years, I find out that they're married and have a family. Now, can I really go and beat them up for being out of integrity and keeping the bit, what I called at that time, the big lie from me? When I had just in that moment, just in that almost that very same year, healed the big lie in my life. I had to really look at that. And, you know, and of course I did what we do. I went to a class called I went to some class like this in our personal development mode of operation. And, you know, and one of the things that I learned is this: what we put out, we get back. And once we start to heal things, once we say we're going to heal this, we're going to start being impeccable, we're going to start doing things the right way, anything unlike that's going to come up to be healed. Anything unlike it is going to come up to be healed. So we have this opportunity in being impeccable with our word to not be surprised when we do cleanup on aisle 3 that there's going to be some other folks in aisle 3 doing cleanup as well. And that's part of why we come together as human beings. That's a part of who we are in this process of going, Okay, what still needs to be cleaned up here in my life? There are times when we are, with the best intention, thinking that we're telling the truth, to learn, oh, that wasn't true at all. Oh, wow, I've got to go clean that up.
It is so important that with just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. It sounds very simple, but it is very, very powerful. Why your word? Your word is the power that you have to create. Your word is the gift that comes directly from God. The Gospel of John in the Bible, speaking of the creation of the universe, says, "In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God." Through the Word you express your creative power. It is through the Word that you manifest everything. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent manifests through the Word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the Word. The Word is not just a sound or a written symbol. The Word is a force. It is the power you have to express and communicate, to think, and thereby to create the events in your life. You can speak. What other animal on the planet can speak? The word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is the tool of magic. But like a sword with two edges, your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. One edge is the misuse of the word, which creates a living hell. The other edge is the impeccability of the word, which will only create beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Depending upon how it is used, the word can set you free, or it can enslave you even more than you know. All the magic you possess is based on your word. Your word is pure magic, and misuse of your word is black magic. The word is so powerful that one word can change a life or destroy the lives of millions of people. Some years ago, one man in Germany, by the use of the word, manipulated a whole country of the most intelligent people. He led them into a world war with just the power of his word. He convinced others to commit the most atrocious acts of violence. He activated people's fear with the word, and like a big explosion, there was killing and war all around the world. All over the world, humans destroyed other humans because they were afraid of each other. Hitler's word, based on fear-generated beliefs and agreements, will be remembered for centuries. The human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. The word is like a seed, and the human mind is so fertile. The only problem is that too often it is fertile for the seeds of fear. Every human mind is fertile, but only for those kinds of seeds it is prepared for. What is important is to see which kind of seeds our mind is fertile for, and to prepare it to receive the seeds of love. Take the example of Hitler. He sent out all those seeds of fear, and they grew very strong and beautifully achieved massive destruction. Seeing the awesome power of the word, we must understand what power comes out of our mouths. One fear or doubt planted in our mind can create an endless drama of events.